Shalom, welcome to Parshat Wisdom from YCT. I'm Rabbi Dov Linzer, and I'd like to share a thought on Parshat Yitro that has to do with seeing and discernment. A key word there in Parshat Yitro is Vayar, that he saw Vayar choten Moshe, Moshe's father-in-law saw how Moshe was acting, how this system was wearing out, exhausting Moshe, and he had the advice that he had. He was able to see something that Moshe could not see, because Moshe was within the system. And he took the system for granted. He couldn't step outside and say, what is another way of doing something? That's something that an outsider can see because he's not in the bubble and he's not taking everything for granted. Now, we have an earlier Vayar that is equally as critical, that is a seeing of an outsider. And that's by Moshe, right, where it says, Vayar ish mitzri makei shivri mechav. He saw the Egyptians smiting the Hebrew. Now, that was a type of discernment that, sure, everybody else saw that as well. But they just moved on. They took that for granted. That is the reality of their lives. Nothing particular, keep on going. Nothing particular to see here. Whereas Moshe, as an outsider, was able to feel outrage, was able to feel that this is unacceptable. These are people. These are human beings. This is not the way you treat somebody else. These are people that have to live a different type of a life. It was a discernment that was possible from an outsider who was not in a bubble that took everything for granted. Now, what was Yitro's advice as this outsider? Two things. The first thing is, what is Moshe's role and what are other people's role? Not just an advice of, hey, here, you can do this better, but a question of, what do you, Moshe, have to do, and what are the things that you can delegate? Because not only does it say delegate, it says, by Moshe, it says, your job is to bring the people to God. It says, you will bring the words of the people to God. You represent the people to God. And you represent God to the people. You tell them the mitzvot, the way they're supposed to live their lives. You bring the people to God. You elevate people. You inspire people. You bring their complaints to God. And you bring God and the Torah to the people. Now, that is an essential message, not just about a religious leader, but it's about all of us. As a student of mine said, there are things that have to get done in the world, very important things, but they don't have to get done by me. My goal in life is to identify what are the things that I have to get done. I can bring my unique contributions to, and that's how I have to focus my life. It plays out also in terms of our work. We can get caught up in a lot of million things, and a good manager will say, hey, your time is valuable. We don't pay you to do all this nonsense. You have to devote your time to the thing that you most can contribute to this country, to this company. So that's the first Vayar that he was able to see. What are those things that we have to do, and what are the things that others can do? What is our role? And for religious leaders, it's a critical message of don't get caught up with the nonsense. Focus on raising the people, bringing them to God, and bringing God's word to the people. Now, the second Vayar has to do with what is God's word. And the Bnei Israel are about to get the Torah at Har Sinai. They're about to get all of these mitzvot. And Yitro, as an outsider, says, there's more to life. There's more to Torah than just mitzvot. He says, yes, you tell them the chukim and Torot, but you also tell them et haderech yelchuva, the maaseh asher ya'asun, the path that you lead, and the way that you're supposed to ultimately act, not just the act, but asher ya'asun, the way you do it ideally. Rabbis tell us that means lifnim mishur hadin, living up to the spirit of the law. And they tell us that the first part has to do with an ethical life within the Torah, gemilut chasadim, doing acts of kindness, burying people, visiting people who are sick. Don't just focus on the technical. Understand the deeper spirit of the law and live your lives religiously and not just lives of observance. This is what he's able to discern. You're about to get all these mitzvot. I am telling you, stepping back, that there's more to Torah than just that. There's more to Torah than just the technicalities. And this is our job in life. First, to be able to step outside our bubble, to be able to ask ourselves, what are we taking for granted? And what do we have to really look at, try to look at from the outside, or bring in somebody who can help us, like Yitro is an outsider. It doesn't have to be done by us. You hire a coach, you hire somebody, you bring somebody in to say, what am I doing right? How am I using my talents? What am I doing wrong? How do I identify what part of my structure is can change? And how do I identify what my real role is? And from the life of Torah and mitzvot, it's telling us, don't just focus on all the mitzvot. Ask yourself, what is the derech yelkuva? What is the path of that the Torah is commanding us, the way we live our lives, not just by halacha, but by the deeper spirit of the Torah. Shabbat Shalom.